Hello and welcome to Mind, Body, Sleep, the podcast for anyone out there who wants to understand and recover from insomnia using a holistic perspective. I'm Beth Kendall, your host. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I hope you're all doing really well. I am feeling pretty proud of myself for recording my podcasts ahead of time because I'm going on a trip in June to Whistler, British Columbia, Canada, which is a little town north of Vancouver. I have always wanted to go to Whistler because I've literally never heard anything bad about the place. It seems like everyone who goes absolutely loves it and says it's one of their favorite destinations. So I am going to check it out. I had a flight attendant friend reach out and ask if I wanted to go to either Whistler or Banff, which is also supposed to be amazing. But since both of these getaways seemed like a no-brainer, I was like, yes, let's go. So we settled on Whistler, and I will let you know how it goes. But before I forget, I want to give a shout out to all of my amazing Mind, Body, Sleep students, past or present. If any of you guys are interested in coming on the podcast and sharing your story, please don't hesitate to reach out to me because people are really liking the hope stories. And I remember when I was in the thick of it, there were many days where just hearing someone else's story was the hope that got me through. So shoot me a message and let me know if that's something that speaks to you, and I would love to catch up with you on the show. Okay, so today we're talking about the pressure paradigm. You've probably heard me say before that I view insomnia largely as a condition of pressure, because without pressure, or in the absence of pressure, sleep naturally has the room to flow. I don't think you could have insomnia without the element of pressure. Now, what's so interesting about insomnia is it tends to shine a light on some of the patterns that govern our lives, particularly the pattern of pressure. There are so many fears that you could conceivably avoid throughout the course of your whole life, but because insomnia is so dang loud and sleep is something we deal with every night, insomnia often becomes the catalyst for a deeper insight into some of the ways that we do life. And the pressure that I'm going to talk about today is twofold. It's both the pressure we impose on ourselves and the pressure our brains perceive. So essentially, the pressure we unconsciously create becomes the lens through which we interpret life. So let's break this down a bit more by talking about the role of self-imposed pressure. I am definitely no stranger to self-imposed pressure. In fact, I would say it's a pretty central theme of my life, and I'm absolutely a recovering perfectionist. And the first thing I want to say about self-imposed pressure is that it's just a survival pattern, okay? A way we learn to cope in the world based on our past experiences. And there's nothing wrong with pressure itself. Sometimes pressure can be a good thing. I still definitely use pressure intentionally as a way to move the needle for certain things in my life. It's not about eliminating pressure. It's more about when it can be a helpful thing in your life and when it's something that you don't really need. Now, self-imposed pressure usually looks like extremely high standards or expectations, perfectionism. It's the constant drive to perform and achieve, always in a state of striving. And these patterns are often driven by core beliefs around worthiness or enoughness and what we believe to be true about ourselves. Now, perceived pressure is how our brains interpret and react to external situations. It's the filter through which we view our experiences. For example, A minor work deadline might feel like a significant source of stress or pressure if our mind is already primed to feel pressure. So the perception can amplify what might otherwise be a pretty minor situation. So this feedback loop of pressure can play a central role during insomnia. A bad night of sleep causes concern, which leads to pressure, which makes it harder to sleep. And we just stay in this cycle. Now, throughout my work in the mentorship, I've identified 3 key ways people tend to get stuck in the pressure paradigm during their recovery. So I want to share those with you today in hopes that they might be helpful for you on your path. So the first thing our brains like to do with whatever tool or teaching is presented is immediately attach it to an outcome. And that outcome is usually sleep. And I totally get it, because you probably wouldn't be listening to this podcast if you didn't want better sleep. So that makes a lot of sense. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to insomnia, sleep isn't really the barometer of success, right? Because you can be sleeping well, but if there's still a lot of fear or anxiety about not sleeping in the future, or you're still making decisions based on not disrupting your sleep, or you're not living life the way you really want to live it because you're protecting sleep, then insomnia is still running the show, right? So it's not about sleep. And it's actually taking the pressure off of sleep by not making it a goal that's ultimately going to help you reach that goal. Got to throw in a few paradoxes every now and then. Now, the other thing I wanted to offer about doing something with the expectation of achieving a specific result is that while this approach works for many areas of life, thoughts, emotions, and insomnia tend to respond paradoxically, meaning the more we try to eliminate them, the more they tend to hang on. So this is really where the pillars of acceptance, trust, mindfulness, and self-compassion come in and help us relate to these experiences differently. The second way I see the pressure paradigm show up is by attaching to a timeline. Our brains love to do this. We often believe that making certain changes will resolve our struggle very quickly, but this isn't usually the case. Progress typically comes in small incremental changes over time. In fact, I've never seen anyone go from complete resistance to complete acceptance immediately. I don't think our brains could even handle such a big shift. It's more about making gradual 1% changes over time rather than feeling like you've got to accept and respond to everything perfectly all at once. Insomnia itself usually fades gradually, more like a block of ice melting than a sudden noticeable benchmark of recovery. Which leads me to the third way the pressure pattern often manifests, which is striving for perfection. People with insomnia tend to have very high standards and feel like failures if they still struggle or still have fears. But this is so normal. We're all humans having a very real human experience that is filled with a bunch of different emotions. Some days we're up, some days we're down, and all of it is completely okay. And when we're okay with it, our brains are okay with it too. So it's really important to be gentle with yourself during this process and recognize that small steps and compassion are really key. In closing, I want to say that you are worthy of sleep just the way you are. There is nothing you need to change about yourself to have sleep, because everything you need is already inside of you. I think we get it in our heads that we need to apply these pressure patterns to our sleep the way we do with other things in life. And that simply isn't the case. Sleep is simple. There's nothing you need to do or be. Until next time, I'm Beth Kendall, and you've been listening to the Mind, Body, Sleep podcast. Bye for now. Thanks for being here today. If you love what you heard on today's episode, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the podcast. And if you need more support with your sleep, join me in the Mind, Body, Sleep Mentorship. This 3-month one-on-one program will transform your relationship with sleep so you can get back to living the life that you love, free from the fear of not sleeping. Head on over to bethkendall.com for more details. I'll see you next time.